What if you're not lost? What if you're just running from the part of yourself that you fear the most? Think about that for a moment. That gnawing emptiness you've been carrying. That persistent feeling that something is missing. Maybe you've called it confusion. Maybe you've called it burnout, anxiety, or just being in a rut. You look around and everyone else seems to be moving forward. Achieving, loving, living, and there you are stuck. Scrolling, existing, surviving. Telling yourself that you're just lost. But what if that's not the truth? What if being lost is just a convenient label you've given to something far deeper, something much harder to face? What if instead of being lost, you're actually hiding? Hiding from the darkest part of you, from the anger you were told to repress, the desires you've been conditioned to shame, the grief you never fully felt. The version of yourself that doesn't fit the story you show the world. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And maybe, just maybe, that's what you've been doing. Running, distracting, performing. Not because you're lazy, or broken, or weak, but because somewhere inside, there's a shadow you've never dared to meet. You're not lost, friend. You're avoiding. You've been so focused on putting one foot in front of the other that you haven't to stop to ask, where am I really going? You've mapped out your career, your goals, your image, but what about your soul? What if the reason you feel disconnected is because you are disconnected from your pain, your truth, your wholeness? This is a video about how to find your way back because you were never really off the path. It's a video about turning around, about facing what you've buried, and discovering that the place you've been running from is actually the place you're meant to return to. Are you ready to stop running? Because this journey doesn't start with clarity, it starts with courage. Before we dive deeper, take a moment. If this message is already resonating with something inside you, then don't let it stop here. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next video drops. I don't post often, but when I do, it's something that might just change how you see yourself forever. Let me tell you a story. Not the kind with heroes and villains, but the kind that looks a lot like your own life, ordinary on the outside, yet quietly unraveling within. There's a man, let's call him Daniel. Daniel is successful by every conventional standard. He has a stable job in a reputable firm. His friends describe him as reliable, funny, and always up for a beer after work. On social media, he shares photos of weekend getaways, birthdays, gym check-ins, and the occasional motivational quote. But when the noise fades, when the phone is off, and the lights go out, something else emerges. Daniel lies awake most nights, staring at the ceiling. Not because of insomnia, but because of something heavier, something nameless. A strange hollowness he can't shake. He can't explain it, not even to himself. I should be happy, he tells himself. I have everything, and yet it's there. That weight in his chest, that quiet ache behind the smile. What Daniel doesn't know or refuses to see is that buried beneath his polished life is a wound. A wound from childhood, left untouched. A father who never truly saw him. A mother who only showed love when he achieved something. A boy who learned very early that being emotional made him weak. So Daniel became strong, quiet, controlled. He learned to laugh instead of cry, to work instead of feel, to keep moving instead of slowing down. He buried his pain so well that he almost believed it wasn't there. Almost. Almost. Because no matter how deep you bury it, the shadow doesn't die. It waits. It waits in the form of anxiety before important meetings. It appears as irritation during small conflicts. It reveals itself in the way he sabotages relationships just when they start getting too real. It shows up in his dreams, in the tightness in his chest, in the vague sense that something is missing. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what's happening to Daniel, and maybe to you too. You think you're choosing freely, but often it's not you making the choice, it's the wound. It's the shadow. The unresolved pain whispering behind every decision, every fear, every self-sabotaging moment. Maybe you're not Daniel. Maybe you're the friend who always listens, the one everyone turns to, but no one ever asks how you're doing. Maybe you keep yourself busy, always in motion, because slowing down might mean facing something you're not ready to feel. Or maybe you're the high achiever, the one with the accolades, the respect, the status. But every time you reach a goal, the joy fades faster than it arrived. And there you are again, searching for the next thing to fill the void. No matter the form it takes, the feeling is the same: emptiness, disconnect, and a quiet sense that you're performing a life instead of living it. Here is the truth no one told you growing up. Your shadow eyes into your enemy. It's not the part of you to fear, deny, or suppress. It's the part of you that holds your deepest wounds, but also your deepest truths. The pain, the shame, the anger you've locked away, that's not a weakness. That's your story. And within it lies your freedom, but only if you face it. Daniel's story isn't unique. In fact, it's frighteningly common. A society that rewards appearances over authenticity creates millions of Daniels, people functioning, producing, achieving. While spiritually starving, we live in a world obsessed with performance, being fine, being strong. But no one teaches us what to do when our soul starts screaming in a whisper soft enough to ignore, loud enough to keep us up at night. So we label it stress, we drown it in entertainment, we chase dopamine, and we wonder why we feel so alone in a world that's never been more connected. You are not broken, you are not lost. You are just disconnected from yourself, and the self you redisconnected from the one you've been running from is the version of you that has been carrying your pain for years, begging to be seen, begging to be heard. The child who needed love and safety, the teenager who was told to get over it, the adult who learned to numb instead of feel. That's who's in the shadow, and that's who's calling you back. This isn't about healing overnight. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about having the courage to finally look inward and say, I see you, I hear you, I won't run anymore. Because when you stop running, something miraculous happens. The pain softens, the anxiety begins to speak instead of scream, and the numbness slowly, tenderly begins to feel again. And in that moment, you realize you were never lost. You were simply waiting to come home. But why do we avoid the shadow? Why do we run from it as if it's something evil, monstrous, or dangerous? The answer is simple, but not easy. We were trained to. From childhood, we are taught directly and indirectly which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which are not. We're told who we should be, how we should feel, and what we should hide. We absorb it from our parents, teachers, friends, media, religion, and culture. We learn early that being good means being quiet, compliant, agreeable, cheerful, and productive. So what do we do with the rest of us? What happens to the anger, the jealousy, the fear, the grief? What do we do with our rawness, our darkness, our wounds? We bury them. We push those parts down into the unconscious, out of sight, out of mind. We pretend they don't exist until they show up in ways we can't control. In our emotional outbursts, in self-sabotage, in anxiety and depression, in judgment, blame, and projection. This is what Carl Jung called the shadow, the part of the psyche that contains everything we've rejected, denied, or disowned. Not because it's bad, but because we were told it was unacceptable. In Jung's words, the shadow is the person you would rather not be. And in our modern world, especially within American culture, the shadow has become even more hidden because we live in a society that worships positivity and performance. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us to be our best self, to stay positive, to never settle, and to keep grinding. Emotions like sadness, anger, or fear are seen as weakness. Vulnerability is treated like a liability. In hustle culture, there is no room for stillness, no space for inner chaos. Everything must be optimized, monetized, and aestheticized. So instead of facing our pain, we brand over it. Instead of feeling our emotions, we schedule them. Instead of listening to the voice within, we drown it out with podcasts, productivity, and perfectionism. And the cost of all this, a soul in exile. We become strangers to ourselves, performing a life that looks right, but feels hollow. Because no matter how hard you try to control your image, the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits behind the smile, behind the success, behind the curated persona. It waits for a crack, a moment of silence, a breakdown, a sleepless night, and then it whispers, "You've forgotten who you are." But this shadow, it isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to complete you. Because your shadow is not just a collection of negative traits, it is also where your unclaimed power lives, your creativity, your passion, your intuition, your truth. Everything you've locked away to fit in, to survive, to succeed, it's still there, waiting to be reclaimed. The longer you deny your shadow, the more power it has over you. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what most of us do. We think we're choosing our paths freely, but in truth, we're often repeating the same patterns, drawing the same kinds of people, falling into the same traps, not because we're cursed, but because we haven to face the part of us that is running the show from behind the curtain. The shadow holds the blueprint for all the ways we betray ourselves. It's the reason we over-apologize, the reason we lash out, the reason we sabotage love, the reason we chase things we don't even want. And we keep doing it because we're afraid that facing the truth about ourselves will break us. But the opposite is true. Avoidance is what breaks you. Avoidance is what keeps you stuck in cycles of guilt, shame, and confusion. Avoidance is what keeps you lost in roles and masks that were never yours. Avoidance is what keeps you from the deep, grounded peace that only comes when you stop running and start integrating. Jung didn't believe in becoming perfect. He believed in becoming whole. To be whole means to embrace your contradictions, to honor your complexity, to stop pretending, to allow your wounds to breathe, to let your shadow speak. Integration doesn't mean acting on your shadow impulses. It means recognizing them, understanding them, and learning from them. It means sitting in discomfort without shame. It means owning your story, all of it. In a world that rewards artificial light, Jung calls us to return to the dark, not to suffer, but to remember, not to collapse, but to awaken. So if you've been feeling numb, tired, irritable, or disconnected, don't rush to fix it. Don't slap a motivational quote on top of your pain. Pause, breathe, turn inward. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What part of me have I buried? What truth have I been afraid to feel? Because behind every feeling you've been taught to silence is a message. And behind that message is freedom. So how do we begin? How do we stop running from the parts of ourselves we fear and instead begin to integrate them? Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not enlightened in the popular sense, but whole, authentic, conscious, and rooted in your full self, both light and dark. Individuation is not a single moment of clarity. It's a path, one that requires courage, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to inner truth. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is the key. The work is not to transcend your shadow, but to turn toward it, to meet it, to understand it, and most importantly, to reclaim the power it holds. So how do you do that? Step 1, recognize the shadow. Before you can integrate the shadow, you have to see it. And this isn't always obvious because, by definition, the shadow lives in the unconscious. It hides behind masks. It wears the face of denial. It often appears as something external, a person we dislike, a pattern we can't escape, a trigger we don't understand. One of the clearest ways the shadow shows up is through emotional reactions. Pay attention to moments when your response is disproportionate to the situation. That sudden rage, that irrational jealousy, that quiet resentment. Those emotions are messengers' clues pointing to something deeper that hasn't been seen. Jealousy might not be about the other person. It might be your own abandoned dreams calling out. Anger might not be about what just happened. It might be the voice you were never allowed to raise. Disgust, fear, shame, each of these can be the echo of a part of you that's been silenced. Your triggers are trailheads. Don't push them away. Follow them inward. Dreams are another powerful doorway. Jung believed that the unconscious speaks in symbols, and our dreams are rich with metaphors that often reveal the unspoken truths of the psyche. Recurring dreams, disturbing images, or seemingly absurd stories are rarely random. They are maps. And your shadow is often the guide. Start with curiosity. Ask, what part of me am I not seeing here? What have I judged or hidden? What am I afraid others might discover about me? That's where the shadow lives. Step 2. Accept the shadow. Recognition is only the first step. The deeper work is in acceptance. And this is where most people stop, because facing the truth is painful. It hurts to admit that you've hurt others. It's hard to see that you've been manipulative, selfish, passive-aggressive, or afraid. It's uncomfortable to hold the mirror up and say, yes, this is part of me too. But here's what you must understand. Acceptance is not endorsement. You are not saying that everything in the shadow is good or should be acted upon. You are simply recognizing that it's there, that it has shaped you, and that denying it only gives it more power. When you accept your shadow, you stop being its victim. You stop projecting it onto others. You stop blaming the world for the pain you've refused to feel. And something powerful happens. You begin to feel compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. You see how your defenses were built to protect a younger version of you. You understand why you learned to hide certain parts of yourself. You realize that your darkness doesn't make you less human, it makes you real. Self-accept. Step 3. Integrate and transform. Integration is the final step, and it's where true transformation begins. To integrate your shadow means to bring it into the light of your awareness, to work with it consciously, and to reclaim its energy. Remember, your shadow is not just made of pain. It also contains potential untapped creativity, hidden power, fierce clarity, wildness, sensuality, intuition, and truth. When you stop suppressing your anger, you can use it to set boundaries. When you stop hiding your sadness, you can connect deeply with others. When you stop denying your desires, you can live with passion instead of guilt. The goal is not to out the shadow, but to channel it. To choose consciously how to respond, rather than react unconsciously from old wounds. This is individuation. The return to the self. Not the persona, not the role, not the image, but the raw, whole sacred truth of who you are. It won't make you invincible, but it will make you unshakable. Because when you know your own darkness, you stop being afraid of it in others. When you accept your shadow, you stop chasing approval. And when you integrate your pain, it no longer controls you, it empowers you. The world tells you to be better. Jung invites you to be whole. And wholeness is the most radical thing you can ever become. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is already awakening. Maybe it's a whisper, a flicker, a quiet truth you've spent years trying to silence. But now, it's speaking again. And I want you to know something no one told you growing up. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too chaotic. You are not failing at life. You are just running from yourself. And how could you not? This world has taught you to smile when you want to scream, to nod when you want to speak, to stay strong when you're breaking inside. It has conditioned you to shrink, to perform, to hide. You've survived by disowning parts of yourself you were never meant to abandon. But the ache you feel, the emptiness that lingers even when everything looks fine, that's your soul calling you home. Not to some new version of you, not to some enlightened, perfect, curated self, but to the real you, the whole you, the one who feels deeply, the one who questions everything, the one who's been hiding in the shadows, waiting for you to stop running. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society told you to be, not who you pretend to be, but who you are beneath the layers, the masks, the armor." And here's the truth. That journey begins not with light, but with darkness. Not with answers, but with questions. Not with certainty, but with surrender. Not with fixing yourself, but with finally feeling yourself. You will not find your freedom by running faster. You will not find your peace by achieving more. You will not find your wholeness in someone else's eyes. You will find it when you sit with the part of yourself you've feared the most. So stop. Close your eyes, breathe. Feel what's been hiding beneath the surface. The anger, the grief, the longing, the shame, the dreams you abandoned, the truth you swallowed, the self you forgot. Don't run. Sit with the darkness. Listen, there lies your truth. Because freedom is not the absence of fear. Freedom is the courage to face your own shadow and love what you find. It's standing in the mirror and saying, "I see all of you, and none of you is unworthy of love." That is the kind of liberation no amount of money, status, or praise can give you. It's the kind that doesn't just change your mindset, it changes your life. When you accept your shadow, you stop blaming others for your pain. When you embrace your truth, you stop chasing validation. When you remember who you are, you stop trying to become what you're not, and from that place, you begin to live. Not perform, not survive, live. Fully, deeply, honestly. And that life, the one rooted in awareness, compassion, and inner truth, is the one you were always meant for. But don't walk this path alone. If this message touched something inside you, it wasn't by accident. There's more coming, more reminders, more truth, more light in the dark. So before you go, take one small step. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it keeps you connected to this journey. Because I promise you this, every video I make isn't for clicks or clout. It's for the part of you that knows. You are meant for more than pretending. You are meant for more than performing. You are meant to remember who you truly are. And I'll be here week after week guiding that return. You're not alone. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's your compass. And this is just the beginning.